Welcome to our tutorial on the time management section in the time and attendance software of your integrated product. From our dashboard, in the upper right, we will select the time menu, and that brings us into the time and attendance app. From here, we can see that we have missing punches that we need to address. We see that we have pending time off requests. I can hover over edits and then click on time management to bring me to the area that I need to be at in order to take care of these items. What we're presented with first is our exceptions tab. Here I can see the exceptions of all the employees that I have access to. My current access is admin, so I am able to see all the exceptions for all the employees. What I'm looking at here on the screen is I have a lot of in punches that have no out punches. Here I've got an out punch, but no in time. Here I have a lunch out, which signifies that there is not a lunch in to match. Edits are easy to be made right here on this page. We can just click anywhere over from here to the right. I'm just going to click on the time in. We can see that brings this into edit mode. Down below, I can see their time card for this week and all of their other punches associated with this week. So I see 11/4 here. I don't see anything for 11/4 down below on the time card, but I do see that, he's typically in at 6 p.m. with the exception of this day. So when thinking about which time he needs to have here or what time the employee gave me that they clocked out, we can kind of see if it matches with what they've been doing throughout the week. So I'll go ahead and enter in a 6 p.m. Entering time in here, I could just simply click on the 6 p.m. It's not always that easy. Usually it's 6:01, 6:04, 6:03. In those instances, I can simply type 6:03 and then PM right after that. Clicking outside the box, I can see that it did relate to 6:03 p.m. If you like using military time, you can enter in 6:03, click outside it, and you can see that in AM, PM, it's the same time that you wanted to put in. From here, I would leave a note as to why I'm adding this punch for the employee. And then my initials so that my supervisor can tell that I'm the one that added this in. Now, the initials are not necessary. They're just good habit. You are able to go up to your reports, administrative, and audit your transactions, exceptions, and things like that and find out who exactly it was. I'm going to click Save to the left. The punch disappears from my exceptions board, and I can begin to work on my other employees. This employee forgot to clock in, so here I can just click right there. I don't need to put a date in if it's the same date as this. When I add the time in, the date is automatically inserted to match the date of the opposite punch that's already there. I type in my note, add my initials, and I can click Save. Lunch punches are a little bit different. We have a lunch out, and they need a lunch in. For a missing lunch punch, we will use the Add New Punch. Now, the Add New Punch can also be used if someone comes up to you and says, hey, I was distracted. My supervisor pulled me out to start on something before I had a chance to clock in. I was here at such and such time. In an event like that, you can click on Add New Punch, select their name from the drop-down, make sure the date is correct. This should always default to today's date. and then enter the time that they clocked in. Because I'm putting 6:03 a.m., I don't have to put anything after it, and the system understands that that's going to be a.m. because that's similar to military time of 0603. If you want, you can still put in 6:03 a.m. and click outside the box and see that it formats correctly to the way you want it. For this punch, however, we need to add a lunch return punch, or an in from lunch. So I'm going to select my lunch return, the date, and she took her lunch at 11 a.m. I'm going to give her a lunch at 11:30. I'm entering my note. I add my initials, and I save. My data is saved successfully, and it disappears from my exceptions page. Now we'll go take a look at Michelle's time card, and if you have a question on anything that's on here, rather than fixing it right from here, you can click right here on the employee's name. When you click on the employee's name, it is going to take us to the timesheet and already have that employee pre-selected for you. You may or may not need to adjust the pay period depending on the punch you're looking for. In this instance, we corrected her lunch. We added a lunch return at 11:30. The reason that I added it from the Add New Punch is because when adding a lunch punch, it actually creates two punches. A lunch out is going to create your stop work. From there, the hours in the morning can be calculated. It also creates the start lunch for you. When the employee returns from lunch and they clock back in from lunch, it creates the stop lunch, and it also creates a second punch of the start work. This is used in conjunction with the clock out to be able to calculate the hours for the afternoon. In our exceptions page, we also have unknown IDs. Now this is used in case somebody is clocking in, say, with a 4-digit number. Maybe they clocked in with the wrong 4-digit number if they're using a keypad entry, and that number does not match any employee in the system. Maybe they've been issued a badge, but that badge has not been assigned to an employee yet. Or maybe they've been enrolled to a biometric clock, but the employee has not been entered into the system yet. And when I say entered, in your HR application, when you enter the employees in, you will place the information that is needed for the time and attendance so that when the employees do clock in and out, it can match up their punches to that specific employee. But clicking on this box will bring up those employees that have been clocking in either with the wrong number or because they haven't been added to the HR side yet. And I can see the number they're using to clock in with. And the fact here that it says add employee tells me that there is no record of this employee card within the system. So at this point, I could go to the HR module if I knew who this was, add that employee in. Once that employee is added, all of these punches will then go to that employee's time card. I don't have to do anything further. Punches within the punch threshold. These will show me any punches from anyone within the last 16 hours. Clicking on the box puts a check mark in it, and now I can see all the activity within the last 16 hours. This is similar to the status board in the dashboard, but rather than going all the way back here to find out when the last person was that clocked in today or when a specific person clocked in today, you can quickly select the punches within punch threshold to find that. You can sort it by name, card ID, date, punch type, and so forth. The drop downs here are merely filters. So if I want to see only the employees in here from a specific supervisor, I can filter out all the other employees. The department and jobs, I can filter by their default department or their default job. The manager would be the same as the supervisor. If I am using managers in the system, I would be able to sort or filter, I should say, the employees based on the manager that they are assigned to. Our timesheet area allows us to see more detail on a specific employee. Looking at Michelle's time card, I can see the different colors associated in the time card. Exceptions are the red color. Overlapping or duplicated time is in the pink color. Non-paid would be teal. Awards purple. Paid time away such as vacation, holiday, sick, things like that are in the green, and your worked items are in the white. So I can see I have exceptions here that need to be taken care of. I also have a problem with the punch on this day. And we can see here she was clocked in from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. But for some reason another entry was made from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So it's presented to us in this color to tell us that we have a potential problem. This may have been done on purpose, but it's going to remain this color just to let us know that this is something that we need to look at to make sure it's correct. It will process and go to payroll like this. It's merely informational to let you know that you need to take a second look. Our work is in the white, teal, lunch, non-paid. And if your employees are clocking in and out for lunch, you will see three lines. You will see the morning work, the lunch, and the afternoon work. One of the things that's really nice is if you're required to split up an employee's day by different departments, jobs, things like that, where the employee is not required to do it at the clock, then you can select assign and redistribute. And we can see here they've got 8 hours for the day in their default level 1, their sales department, and they're not attached to a job by default. So maybe I need to split this day up into a few segments. Maybe he spent 2 hours at the south location in the janitorial department, 2 hours, and you'll notice I don't care how many he had. When I enter a time into this box and click outside of it, it automatically enters the remainder on the next line. We'll put here is in the north location for sales, north location as a driver. So I've now successfully split up his day into 3 parts and assigned them to the particular departments that I needed him to be in. I select save. My transaction was reassigned correctly, and I click OK. Now I can see the day broken into 3 pieces. At a glance over here under the pay type, I see the word edited over here on all of these. This is because I'm adding these punches in as an administrator or as a supervisor. If these were coming directly from the clock, we would simply see work. So whenever you're looking through a time card and you see edited, you know immediately that something has been adjusted. For each one that's adjusted, you should have a note from the supervisor administrator that did the adjustment. And we can see that by holding our mouse over the note. Our totals in the time card are right up here at the top. Paid time away, again, vacation, holiday, sick, personal, things like that. The total worked hours, these are hours spent on the clock in a working capacity. And then it splits out those total hours over here. Now we notice there's only 41 hours, but I can still see these that I put in are pending. When I click refresh over at the right, this will update the transactions and change the time. I can see here now 41 hours. Of that, regular was 40 and 1 was overtime. I look at the transactions below and I can see they moved from pending to processed. If I want to approve time cards one at a time after looking at their time cards, we'll go back to the last pay period here. We typically don't approve a current pay period. I can see the status of this pay period is open. That means that it has not been approved and the pay period was not closed. It's still available for me to add, edit, or remove things that are not needed or that are needed in the time card. I can click here to show the approvals. I can see they're all in a pending state. If I'm a supervisor, I'm not going to see any of these functions for the admin. Since I am logged in as the admin, and due to the way I set this up, I am able to sign off for the supervisor. I'm able to reject the time card as the supervisor and also as the administrator. I did not set the employee up for the admin or the supervisor to be able to sign off for or reject. If the time card looks good, I can sign off. I do not need to wait for the employee or the supervisor to sign off, although in most companies that would be the case. I see that my sign off is submitted, and I can see up here that the time card status has moved from open to blocked. What that means is, and that would happen if the supervisor did it themselves or the employee approved their time. Any three of these people approving the time card will move this status to blocked. What that means is no further edits can be done in this time card, no additions or no deletions. If it came to light that something was needing to be done, then me as the administrator could revert the sign off for myself, for the supervisor, or for the employee. I've reverted it and the status is now open. This employee has been scheduled. If I need to change his schedule, I can click Edit, and I can see the days that they're scheduled to work in here. Maybe I want them to come in on Thursday and not Wednesday. I click here and I move this over, and I'll pull it up or down depending on the time I want the employee to come in. Maybe I do need them to work an additional day on Sunday. I can right click and add new schedule. Select the time that I want them to come in. Again, same as the time card, the number 8 signifies 8 in the morning. I could click the clock and just click on 8 as well. It just depends on what you prefer. The out time, we'll give them 4 p.m. I could also put in 16, which signifies 4 p.m. in military time. Lunch start, I'm going to put in something halfway between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. This does not mean that this employee has to go to lunch at 12, but because of the nature of the scheduling and the different employee setups that there are, it's required to be in here in case an employee is moved to a different status, in case their time cards are automatically generated. We need to have a lunch start in here. The number of minutes for their lunch is entered here, and that way I know if they're going under their lunch or over their lunch when I run a report. I click Save, and now the schedule appears here. I can tell that this one was manually added or edited because now it says manual scheduled. I'll close out here. Below are our totals, and this person's on a weekly pay period, so there's only 1 week right here. But you may have a bi-weekly or a semi-monthly, which could put week 2 over here and or week 3, depending on when your work week begins and how your pay period is structured. Clicking on each one will show you what the hours are for the particular week that you work. Over here is going to show you the total for the pay period. If you need to print this time card quickly for any reason, you can select Print Timesheet. You can click the print button to print it from your browser, or you can select Acrobat PDF and click Export to save it to your computer. Up here we have a department filter. We're able to come down and select a specific department. And now everybody in this list are only the people that belong to this department as their home level, their home department. I can select all again, and then now I can see all the employees. If I needed to view an inactive employee, I could select here, and then this would enable me to see inactive as well as active employees. Next is our PTO requests. PTO requests are typically done by the employee when utilizing the employee self-service portal. Although you can add a new PTO request in here, this is usually not something that is done by a supervisor administrator. Although if you work in a facility that maybe the employees do not use the employee self-service, you might have one person responsible for taking the requests from the employee and adding them into the software. And in that instance, I can come down here and select an employee, click Add a new PTO, and input the request for them. Inputting this is just choosing the date, number of hours per day, a note, if a note is required for this person needing the time off. We would select the bank that they wanted us to use. This is going to tell us how many hours are left in the bank. If a negative amount is not authorized, when we try to confirm this, or when it's tried to be approved, I should say, then the supervisor would not be able to approve the request. Now, maybe the employee only needs a partial day. So I can uncheck the all day. I can come over here and select the time that the employee wants to take, and then the number of hours from there. I can select Generate Request, verify that it's what I need. If I need to add another one, I can come up here and make changes to this information and select Generate Request again, and it will add another line for me. Once I'm happy that all of these are correct, I can select Confirm Requests. My data is saved successfully. My supervisor gets an email if it's set up, and then the supervisor can come back and view my PTO request page. Now, if you're not using the requests and you don't have any need for this, possibly the employee comes to the supervisor and says, hey, I need this date off for this many hours. A supervisor can add that in from the timesheet. Here we've got the Add New Transaction. This is a little different from what we were looking at on the exceptions page for the Add New Punch. Remember, the Add New Punch was just for single punches. In the timesheet, the Add New Transaction enables us to add an in and an out. If we're using unpaid time to track employee absences, we can select that. A bulk transaction, maybe you've got categories set up under here for I don't know, training, team building, shopping, anything like that, where you want to give an employee X amount of hours for a specific date, possibly at a specific time. Awards, bonus, tip, commission, anything like that where you're going to give the employee a monetary amount. Our PTO, here we can see the different banks, how much is remaining in those banks. We can select the date, the time they start, or we can just leave it at 12 a.m. It's important to note if we do use the time they start work and they're taking a partial day, then this better lines up in the time card chronologically, but it's not necessary. You can leave it at 12 a.m. and that's fine. So I'll add 8 hours here, personal PTO for January 23rd, and select save. That is the way we can enter in manual PTO transactions from the time card, bypassing the request system. Now, even with that, adding that punch in like that, you can still take advantage of the View PTOs and Calendar from the PTO Requests tab. So maybe I didn't know, or I don't know if somebody else has already requested the 23rd off. I can select View PTO and Calendar, and I can see right here nobody's requested that off. I think we put his actually in January 23rd. And there we go. So we see it show up as soon as I enter it into the time card. It displays this on the calendar, but if I need to know this information before I actually manually enter that request in, I may want to visit the calendar to see if I'm not double booking somebody and short selling my staff for a specific day. I'm also able to view what's been approved, or I should say resolved, approved or denied, but the resolved cases, when I approve or deny something, it's going to come down here, and I'm going to be able to see if it's approved or denied. If the employee comes back to me and says, you know what, I do not need December 1st off, I can select revert. That's going to bring that request back up here in a pending status. At that time, I can just deny it from here and be done with it, or the employee can go to their self-service portal and edit it for what they need, or they can delete it from the self-service portal themselves. Looking at the requests that I do have, I can see here in the white and blue shaded, these are for requests that are this pay period or prior pay periods that have not been closed that need attention. The green is future. So as I'm looking at this, I know I can ignore the green safely, but concentrate on the ones that need attention now. And then I can go back to the future requests when I am able to and be able to approve and deny those. I can do it all at once if I want, but the colors are there to let me know which ones are more important that need to be taken care of right away. So as I'm looking at this, I see the employee's name, the day of the week they want off, the date, a start time, and this is here because an employee unchecked the all day box, or whoever added the PTO request, the bank that they want off, whether that bank allows a negative amount, how many hours they want to have deducted, how many hours they have remaining in their bank, the date and time of their request in case more than one person requests the same day off, the note from the employee, and then I'm able to approve or deny from here. We see here the employee left this at all day, vacation, 8 hours. They have no time left, but I am allowed to let them go negative, the date and time of their request, and I could approve it from here. Now we discussed our approvals from the timesheet by clicking the Show Approvals, and how to go in employee by employee and sign off on the time cards. We can also hover over Edits and select Approvals. From here, I can see every employee, their number of hours for regular, overtime, double time, paid time away, and their total. We'll go back to an earlier pay period, and this allows us to visualize a little bit more with it filled in with hours. And most times you're going to be looking at overtime to make sure you don't have a lot of overtime, or if they do, you want to make sure that it is supposed to be there. So I can see 2.5 hours right here. Now the supervisor's already approved this, but maybe I want to look at the time card before I approve it. I can click right here on Lisa. This is going to open up another page for me, another tab, and bring me right to Lisa's time card. And as I look through her time card right here, I can see where her overtime is at. I can see her start and stop and see whether or not there's an issue as to why she has that. When I'm done, I can go up and click on my other tab to get back to my approvals that we were just looking at. We see over here on the right in green the letter A. This is telling me that the supervisor approved Bob Smith, the admin approved John Smith, and Janet Jones, and so forth, all the way down the page. I can approve them one at a time by clicking on the name and coming down to the bottom and click Sign Off. Or I can approve them in bulk by clicking on the box up here next to Card ID, and you can see it checks everybody on the page. Now, I don't need to approve these again, so I will uncheck the ones that I already have approved. And I can come down to the bottom and click Sign Off. Are you sure you want to release? And OK. And what it's meaning is, oh, I didn't do her. Click over here, and now I signed off on Susie's. We see the status changed all to blocked. Now, not every company may have supervisors that come in and approve time cards, so it may just be up to the admin that does this. And if you don't have the supervisor or employees set up for time cards, all you're going to see is a column for your admin. Perhaps we have an employee that we cut a manual check to, and we don't want them going across into payroll. So I can select Revert, and now we see the approval is not there for this person. Time cards need to be approved before they will go into payroll. Once I've completed my approvals, then the person in charge of pushing the hours to payroll will be able to carry out their function, and all of the people that are approved will have the hours flow into the payroll software, and then payroll will be able to be calculated and processed. Again, with our drop downs, we're able to go through and see just those people for the specific supervisor, manager, department, just like we were able to do so on the exceptions page. I can even come down here and look at the approvals as a supervisor. With that, we've covered everything in the time management that a supervisor or administrator will need to go through in order to process a successful payroll. We hope this tutorial helped, and thank you for watching.